There is 1/2 of one frame of videotape, 1/60th of 1 second, recorded at 11:41 on the night of October the 14th, 1994, on a state highway in central Montana, that I am going to have to describe to you with words tonight, friends, because the tape itself you will never see. The government of the United States owns every copy of it, but one, and the one is in a fire safe 8 feet from where I am sitting. And I have not opened that safe since 2011. And before this account is over, you will know exactly why. But the half frame. A dashboard camera in a sheriff's cruiser is filming a routine traffic stop. In the picture, 30 feet ahead, sits a tan Buick sedan with its motor running. And in the Buick, visible through the rear window as a dark shape against the headlight glare, sits its driver. Nothing is wrong with this picture, friends. And if you advance that tape one single frame, using the pause and the jog wheel the way I did, alone, at 2 in the morning in an equipment room, 4 months after that night, you will find, wedged between 2 ordinary pictures of an ordinary traffic stop, half a frame, 1 field, the technicians call it, 1/60th of a second, in which the driver of that Buick is not behind the wheel of his car 30 feet away. He is at the camera, friends. Outside the cruiser, bent down to the lens filling the picture, his face 6 inches from the glass, in perfect focus, lit by no light that was present on that road, looking into the camera, looking through it, calm as a passport photograph. And in the same half frame, friends, in the top corner of the picture, past his shoulder, you can still see the Buick, and the dark shape of the driver is still sitting in it. He is in both places, in 1/60th of 1 second. And then the tape goes on, and the stop proceeds, and 14 seconds of it later, Gordon Speece, 41 years old, a paper goods salesman out of Billings, husband, father, Rotarian, stops existing on this earth, in the middle of an unbroken videotape, with a deputy sheriff standing 4 feet from his door. That is the half frame, friends. The FBI knew the second mark of it before they ever watched our tape. Sit with that, the way I have had to. They asked for it by its number. Before we drive out to mile marker 171 together, do one thing for a retired deputy. Put in the comments where you are tonight, your town, your state, and whether you have ever driven a road at night so empty that your own headlights started to feel like the only lit room in the world. I read every one of them. That road is where this account lives. My name is Ross Tevlin. For 22 years, I was a deputy sheriff in wheat and cattle country in the middle of Montana. And I want to build you that country before I build you the night, because the country is a character in this account. Friends, the way the dark is a character in it. Our county was bigger than some eastern states and held fewer people than a good high school football game. 2 incorporated towns, a scatter of ranches, and between them, nothing. Friends, I mean, a nothing that people from cities do not have the mental furniture to picture. U.S. Route 12 ran across our jurisdiction east to west. 2 lanes, no shoulder to speak of, no lights, no houses, no gas for 51 miles. And at night, in October, after the harvest traffic died, you could work a whole shift on that highway and meet 6 vehicles. A night deputy out there is a lit aquarium moving through an ocean of black grass. Your radio works most places. Your radar works everywhere. And your camera. Friends, because by 1994 our little department had them. Grant money, VHS decks bolted in the trunks, a camera on the windshield mount that switched on with the light bar. We hated them, I will be honest. We were old-fashioned men, and it felt like being watched. Chess Youngbird used to say the county bought us a witness that never blinks. Chess Youngbird was the finest deputy I ever worked beside. Friends. A crow man from over toward Pryor. Steady as bedrock. Funny in a way that snuck up on you a day later. My friend. My shift partner 5 years by then. It is his camera this whole account comes off of. And I want his name said plainly at the start, Deputy Chess Youngbird, because the government of the United States took his tape and his report. And eventually, friends, I have come to believe, some quiet, essential part of the man himself, and nobody but me, is left to say his name at all. And I owe you one more piece of the country before the night comes, friends, because you will not feel the night right without it. Out there, the dark is not a shade. It is a substance. On a moonless October night on that stretch, when you kill your headlights, and every road deputy has done it once, young, to see, the world does not dim. Friends, it ends. There is the dome of stars, hard and close. And below it, there is nothing at all. No line where land meets sky, no farmyard light, no glow of any town in any direction, and the wind moves through the grass all around you, with a sound like the world breathing through its teeth. And you sit in your warm-lit box of a cruiser, and you understand, in your skin, what every settler and every crow horseman and every trucker who ever crossed that country by night has understood. You are not driving through an empty place, friends. You are driving through a dark one, and empty and dark are not the same word. And the difference between them is the whole subject of tonight's account. We ran 2 cruisers on nights, one east, one west, 60 miles apart, and we talked on the radio the way lighthouse keepers talk. Not because there was traffic to report, but to keep hearing a voice. I want you to hold that picture. 2 lit rooms crawling through an ocean of black grass, 60 miles apart, each one filming the dark in front of it, 10 hours a night, every night, because the county had bought us witnesses that never blink. Nobody ever asked, friends, in any meeting I attended. The question I have come to believe matters most in this whole account. When you point an unblinking eye at the dark for 10 hours a night, every night, for years, what is the dark supposed to think you are doing? October the 14th, 1994, was a Friday, moonless, hard clear, the first real cold of the fall. I was working the east half of the county, and Chess had the west, which put him on Route 12 out toward the Musselshell line, and at 11:38, his voice came up, on the county channel, bored as a Tuesday, calling a traffic stop. Tan Buick sedan, Montana plate, westbound at 171, weaving over the center line and back, likely a drunk or a sleeper. Dispatch logged at 11:38. I was 40 miles east, with my window cracked, drinking coffee gone cold since sundown, and I remember the stop going out, friends, because Chess signed off the radio the way he always did, when it was nothing, with 2 clicks of the mic instead of words. Routine, friends. There is a whole religion in that word for a road deputy, and it held, that night, for exactly 3 more minutes. At 11:44, the radio came up again, and it was Chess's voice. And 22 years I carried a badge, and I will swear this on any book you bring me. I had never heard that voice from him. Not at wrecks, not at knife calls, not standing in a burning barn full of screaming horses. Quiet, friends. Careful. The voice of a man standing very still in a room he has just realized he does not know. Ross, he said. Not dispatch, not county. Me, by name, against every procedure we had. Ross, you rolling. And I said, rolling, Chess, what do you have? And there was a silence with wind in it. Friends, 11 seconds of open mic. I have timed it since on a tape I no longer own. And then Chess Youngbird, 4 feet from a running Buick on an empty highway under no moon. said the sentence that divides my life in half. He said, "Ross, I have got a car here with its motor running and its seatbelt buckled, and I need you to tell me where the man went that I am looking at." I ran 40 miles of night highway in 28 minutes, and I want to use the drive to tell you about the tape. Friends, the whole tape, second by second, the way I have it by heart, because everything the county did afterward, and everything the government did after that, and everything I have lain awake with for 32 years, all of it hangs off 11 minutes of VHS. The recording starts at 11:37 and 40 seconds, 10 seconds before Chess hit his light bar. That is how the decks were rigged, a memory buffer. So you got the 10 seconds before the switch. In those first 10 seconds, you see Route 12 westbound in Chess's headlights, the dashes of the center line coming up out of the dark like fish, and ahead, the Buick, drifting left over the line, slow, dreamy, and correcting back, the classic sleeper drift. Lights on. The Buick takes 4 seconds to notice, wanders right, and settles onto the edge line. Neat as you please. No flight, no panic. Brake lights. Stopped. Chess pulls in behind. 30 feet. Standard. His headlights and the takedown lights on it. And there, friends, at 11:38, and change, is the picture I described to you at the top of this account. Tan Buick, motor running, exhaust curling in the cold, and through the rear window, the driver. A dark shape, a head and shoulders, upright, still behind the wheel. I have been asked, in rooms with no windows, by men with no expressions, exactly what could be seen of that driver, and the honest answer is a silhouette, friends, but a complete one, and it moves twice. At the 51-second mark, the head turns, checking his own mirror, natural as breathing. And at 11:41, at the mark I will not say casually ever again in my life, at 41 seconds past the minute, the shape sits absolutely still. That is the second, friends, though God knows no one watching at normal speed would ever see it. That is the second the half frame lives in. Chess is out of the cruiser at 11:39, and you see him cross the picture left to right, flashlight up. And here is the thing, friends. The thing the bureau men came back to 9 separate times. Chess walks to the driver's window, and for 14 seconds from 11:39:55 to 11:49, his back and his shoulders block the camera's view of the driver's door and window entirely. 14 seconds. And on the tape, you can see past his elbow, his flashlight working, and you can see his posture. And it is ordinary, friends. License and registration ordinary. A man talking to another man through 6 inches of open window. His mic was not keyed, so there is no sound, but his body is having a normal conversation. And then his body stops having it. You see it in his back first, friends. I have watched it 1,000 times. A stillness comes up his spine like frost climbing a window, and he takes 1 step back from the door. 1, the trained step, the hand going loose by his hip, and then he steps forward again, and his flashlight comes up, and he leans it into the window glass, and then Chess Youngbird spins. Friends, spins clear around, 360, light sweeping the empty highway, the barrow pit, the black grass, the way you spin when something has gone somewhere, and there is no somewhere for it to have gone. And at 11:44 he walks backward, friends, never turning his back on that Buick again, all the way to his cruiser, and reaches in through his window. And that is when the county channel heard the voice I told you about. The motor running, the seatbelt buckled. Tell me where the man went that I am looking at. I want to give you Gordon Speece himself. Before I give you the scene, friends, because a vanished man deserves to be a man in the telling and not just a silhouette. 41 years old, born in Miles City, 19 years selling paper goods for the same Billings wholesaler. The kind of salesman store owners were actually glad to see, and I know because I interviewed 11 of them, and 4 wept. He called on groceries and cafes across the middle of the state. On a 2-week loop, he had driven so long that waitresses in 3 counties knew his coffee order. Black, half a cup, warmed twice. He carried wax paper samples and butcher paper samples and a photograph of his wife and 2 boys in a fold-out wallet insert that he showed to people, friends, unprompted, sincerely, in 1994. He sang in a Lutheran choir. He was, by the testimony of every living soul who knew him, a man without one shadow. And on the night of October the 14th, he was 7 miles from the end of his loop, 7 miles from the motel he had stayed at on that same Friday for 19 years, where the desk kept his same room, where his toothbrush, friends from the previous trip, was standing in a glass waiting on him. A man driving toward his own toothbrush does not walk into the black grass. I have heard every theory 11 times, and I will save you the trouble I did not save myself. He did not run. There was nothing to run from, and nowhere to run to. He did not stage it, you will see why. And he did not die out there, friends, or the country would have given him back. The country always gives them back. Hunters find them. Spring finds them. The smell of August finds them. 32 years. It has never given back so much as a shoelace. I got there at 12:12. By 1 in the morning, there were 8 vehicles on that shoulder. By 3, there were dogs. I will give you the scene the way I logged it, friends, because I wrote the supplemental myself, and I wrote it clean. The Buick's engine was running, 3/4 of a tank. Driver's door closed and latched, window down 5 inches. October air at 29 degrees. Driver's seatbelt buckled, retractor locked, as if under load. Heater on. Radio on, friends, playing, tuned strong to a station whose call letters, when we chased them Monday, belonged to a daytime-only AM gospel outfit in Arkansas that had signed off at sunset, 700 miles of night away. On the passenger seat, a sample case of paper goods, a thermos, a road atlas open to the wrong state. In the trunk, order forms, and a spare tire. Gordon Speece's wallet was in his jacket. Friends, and his jacket was folded on the back seat. Neat. Hotel-made neat. Though his wife would tell us through her grief that Gordon never folded a garment in his life. And his glasses, which he could not drive without, were set on top of the folded jacket, closed, lenses up. And the dogs, friends. 2 good stock dogs, and then a state tracking hound. And all 3 did the same thing. And my hand does not love writing it even now. They took scent at the driver's door, hard, immediate, and ran it around the hood, up the edge line, 11 feet, to the white fog stripe at the front bumper, and stopped. Not lost it, friends. I have watched dogs lose scent. They cast, they circle, they grieve about it. These dogs hit the end of that scent like a wall, sat down, all 3, at different hours, on the same foot of paint, and looked up. Straight up, friends. A hound, a heeler, and a border collie. Hours apart, each sat on the same stripe of highway paint and pointed its nose at the black Montana sky. And the hound man, 40 years of tracking, pulled his dog off the line and would not run her again. And when I asked him what he made of it, he was quiet a while and said, "Deputy, I make of it that the trail don't end. It goes on. It just goes on somewhere my girl and me ain't equipped to follow. And behind us the whole time, friends, 30 feet back, bolted to a windshield. Patient as an eyeball, the camera sat recording all of us, and nobody, not one soul on that shoulder that night, thought yet to wonder what it had already seen. The investigation that followed was 2 investigations, friends, and only one of them was ever written down. The written one you can imagine, and for a week it ran hot and ordinary. Gordon Speece's life was opened like a suitcase, and it was the cleanest suitcase you ever saw. No debts worth the word, no woman, no enemies. A man who sold paper towels to grocery stores across 300 miles of Montana and kept mints in his car for other people's children. The theory mill ran the usual grist. He slipped out while the deputy's body blocked the door, some crouching, sprinting escape into the barrow pit. Except the seatbelt was buckled. Friends, buckled under load lock, and the window gap was 5 inches. And the dog said what the dog said. He was never in the car, a decoy, a dummy, and the silhouette was rigged. Except the silhouette moves, checks its mirror, and Chess Youngbird talked to a man, friends, a breathing man with a face. 60 seconds before the car held nobody. The county attorney liked hoax, the state liked misadventure, the family liked nothing and buried nothing, and by Halloween the file went pending inactive, which is county for nobody knows, and nobody official is going to keep asking. That is the investigation that was written down. If this is your first night at this lamp, I will pull over for half a minute only, because we are close now to the equipment room, and I want your full attention there. This channel is one retired man, and the cases that would not file, told plain and level. No music stunts, no fake footage, which in this account of all accounts matters. Friends, you will see why. If that is worth your evening, subscribe so the next account finds you. And when you finish tonight, if you own a doorbell camera, or a dash camera, or one of those little cameras that watches your baby sleep, just know which way it points, friends. That is all. Know which way it points. And there is one more piece of the written investigation you need, friends. Small at the time, enormous later. The radio. I told you the Buick's radio was playing a daytime-only gospel station out of Arkansas that had signed off at sunset, 700 miles away. The state boys wrote it off as Skywave. Friends, and Skywave is real. AM signals do bounce off the night sky and land in strange counties. Ask any trucker. But I kept the detail in my pocket, and in the spring I did a thing deputies do. I called the station, person to person, long distance on my own dime, and got the engineer, an old gentleman, very courteous. And I asked him what had been on the air at 11:40 at night on October the 14th, expecting him to laugh and say nothing. Son, we sign off at sundown. And he did say that, friends. And then he was quiet a second, and he said a thing I did not tell the sheriff, because by then our tape was gone, and I had learned what telling costs. He said, though I will say, that is the second call I have had about that night. I said the second. And he said, yes, sir. A fellow called in November, government fellow, very polite. Asked the same question you just asked, and one more. He asked whether our transmitter logs showed anything unusual for that hour, and I said, do they? And that old engineer, friends, 700 miles away in a station the size of a chicken house, said, well, the logs show the carrier came up for 4 minutes that night. Nobody here, tower dark, breakers open, and the carrier came up anyway, 11:38 to 11:42. And put out our licensed signal on our licensed frequency with nobody in the building. And son, he said, I have been keeping transmitter logs since Truman, and I wrote beside that entry the only word the FCC form had room for. I wrote, anomaly. The unwritten investigation was mine, and it started as paperwork. Friends, I want that on the record. It started as the most boring virtue in law enforcement. Evidence duplication. The original cassette out of Chess's deck was county property, logged, sealed, and I was evidence officer that quarter. And our procedure said, working copies for the case file. So on a Tuesday in November, I sat in the equipment room with 2 decks, wired nose to tail, and made 3 copies of 11 minutes of tape. And I watched it through, at normal speed, maybe 5 times that day. And friends, at normal speed, there is nothing. I want to be fair to every man who watched it and saw nothing, including the sheriff, including the state boys, including 5 times me. A stop, a walk-up, a blocked view, a spin, an empty car. It was February, before I went back. Friends, a blizzard shift, nothing moving in the county but snow, and I had the equipment room and a question I could not put down, which was Chess's step. That one train step backward at the window before he leaned in again. Something at the window made his body do that. And his report, the report the government owns now, said only, and I quote it entire, because I typed it for him, while his hands were still unsteady, quote, upon contact. The operator was non-responsive to verbal commands, end quote. Non-responsive. So I sat down at 2 in the morning with the working copy and the jog wheel, friends, and I did what nobody does to 11 boring minutes of a routine stop that ruined no one but a paper salesman. I watched it 1 frame at a time. There are 1,798 seconds of tape. At 30 frames to the second, that is 53,940 frames. And somewhere past 4 in the morning, at time mark 11:41 and 41 seconds, my thumb rolled the wheel 1 click, like 50,000 clicks before it, and the picture that came up was not the highway. You know what it was, friends? I opened this account with it. A face, 6 inches from the lens outside the glass, in focus, calm, looking in. Gordon Spieth's face, friends. I had studied it on flyers for 4 months, but I will tell you the 2 details the flyers could not have given me. The 2 details I have told no one until tonight. He was not wearing his glasses. And the expression on that face, friends, 6 inches from a camera, bolted inside a locked patrol car on an empty highway, was not lost, and was not dead, and was not afraid. It was the expression of a man checking on something, friends. The way you look in on a pot that is not quite boiling, patient, proprietary. And 1 click of the wheel later, he was gone, the highway was back, the Buick was back, 30 feet away, with the dark shape of Gordon Spieth sitting upright behind the wheel. And I sat in that plastic chair, friends, in a county building, in a blizzard, with every light in the room on, until the day janitor found me at 7 and asked was I ill. I didn't tell the sheriff for 9 days. I have asked myself 10,000 times, why not, friends? And the truest answer is the one I like least. Some animal part of me, older than the badge, knew already that the half frame was the kind of thing that gets taken away from you. And 9 days later, when I finally walked it into the sheriff's office on a Friday morning, with the cassette in a paper bag like contraband, Sheriff Arn Mavity listened to me and watched my click-by-click demonstration on the office deck, with his coffee going cold in his fist, and he was quiet a long, long time. And then he said the smartest and most useless sentence of his whole long career. Friends. He said, "Ross, rack that back to the beginning, wind it tight, and tell me one thing." He never took his eyes off the dead screen. Who in the hell do we even report this to you? And the answer, friends, though neither of us said it out loud in that room, the answer arrived by itself, 11 days later, in 2 gray sedans with federal plates, and it already knew our case number, and it already knew The tape existed, and it asked for the 41st second, friends by its number, before any man of ours had said the number out loud to anyone. They were not what television had taught us to expect. Friends, no sunglasses, no menace. 4 men, 2 cars, suits off the rack, and the lead one, older, gray at the temples. With the tired courtesy I have since learned to associate with men who do one strange job for one lifetime, sat down with Sheriff Mavity behind a closed door for 40 minutes, and when the door opened, our county had, in effect, resigned from the case of Gordon Speece. The paperwork called it a records audit, pursuant to an ongoing federal matter, friends, and here is what the audit collected before it drove away 9 days later. The original cassette, sealed. My 3 working copies, or so the log said, and hold that thought. Chess Youngbird's report, all versions, including the handwritten first draft out of his own spiral notebook, which they asked for by its existence, friends, a notebook nobody outside our shift room knew existed. The dispatch reels for the whole night, the dog's handler logs, and then, friends, the part that made the hair stand on my arms in a warm office. Every patrol videotape in the county for the entire month of October. Every deputy, every shift, every routine nothing. Hundreds of hours of empty highway, collected, receipted, gone. We asked, carefully, why? And the tired gray man said, with what I believed then was a bureaucrat's evasion, and know now was a plain statement of fact, friends, he said, because we do not yet know when it starts appearing. When. Not if, friends, not whether. When it starts appearing, and then came the interviews, one deputy at a time, in our own break room, with the coffee we made them. And I have compared notes since with 2 of the others, careful notes, decades on, and every interview was the same 11 questions. And I will give you the 3 that matter. Question. Did you at any time view the recording of October 14th at reduced speed or frame by frame? Question. Did you observe an anomaly in the vicinity of time? Mark 11:41 and 41 seconds. They said the number, friends, to men who had never looked, to the day shift deputies, to the jailer, to a 19-year-old reserve who had never seen the tape at all. They said 41:41 out loud, before God and the break room coffee, which means the number was in their files before they crossed our county line, which means, friends, and I want this said slow, our tape was not the first tape. Somewhere in a federal building, there is a shelf, and on that shelf, our October 14th sits in a row with other nights, other empty roads, other counties' quiet men, and the row is long enough that they have learned the timestamp to ask for. And the third question, friends, the one they saved for last in every single interview, asked casual, over the rim of a coffee cup, as the notebooks were closing. Since viewing the recording, have you experienced any change in your sleep? Not bad dreams, friends. They did not say bad dreams. Any change. And I lied, friends. The second federal lie of my life. And I have often wondered how many men, in how many break rooms, in how many counties have lied to that same soft question, and what the true answers would spell if you laid them in a row, like tapes on a shelf. I kept a copy. You know it already, friends, I told you at the top. But now you know what it cost to keep. Because the receipt said 3 working copies, and there were 4, the 4th runoff, in that first November week, and never logged. An act I cannot dress up for you. It was a crime. Friends, a small, quiet federal crime, committed by a man who could not have told you then why he was committing it. I took it home in my lunchbox, and I put it in the fire safe with the deed and Karen's mother's rings. And for a long while, friends, The account you are hearing tonight went dormant, the way such accounts do, because life is strong and daylight is stronger. But I owe you the rest of what happened to the people, because the tape was not done with us. Sheriff Mavity served out his term and did not run again, and at his retirement dinner, deep in the evening, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Apropos of nothing at all, you still got it, don't you?" And I did not answer, and he nodded like I had and said, "Ross, listen to an old man. Watching a thing is not free. Every look is a door open both ways. And he was drunk, friends, and he was righter than any sober man I ever met. And Chess, friends. Chess Youngbird was never again the deputy he had been. Not because of fear, understand. Chess was the bravest man I knew, but because something in him had gone permanently attentive. Like a man who has heard his number called once in a crowded room and cannot stop listening for it after. He transferred home to work tribal police in '96. We spoke every month, and in the spring of 1999, on a dry, clear night, on an empty reservation road, Chess Youngbird's patrol truck was found on the shoulder. Friends. Motor running. Door closed. Seatbelt buckled. And before your heart does what mine did, no. He was not gone, not that way. Chess was in the truck. Friends. Whole, unhurt. Sitting with his hands in his lap, in the middle of the night, 40 miles from where he was supposed to be. And when the tribal officer who found him asked what he was doing out there, Chess looked at him, they say, for a long, quiet moment, and said, "I got stopped." And no camera in his truck. Friends, tribal police had no cameras. And Chess Youngbird never told me, or anyone, one word more about that night. And 11 weeks later, his heart failed in his sleep at 44 years old. A crow man with the blood pressure of a marathon runner. And the last time I saw him, at a funeral I drive 400 miles round trip every June to stand at, I will keep to myself, friends. Except for one thing. His mother took my hand at the graveside, a small iron woman, and she said, "You were his friend. You take this." And what she gave me, folded in a beaded pouch, was a page from his pocket spiral, the kind the federal men thought they had all of, and on it, in Chess's neat print, undated, were 9 words. It looks out at whatever is looking in. Careful. So now it is just me and the safe, friends, and the last stretch of this account. And I will walk it slow, because it is the stretch where the thing stopped being history and started being a schedule. I watched my copy of that tape 3 times across the years after Chess died. 3 sessions. Always the same way. Alone, daylight outside, frame by frame through the 41st minute mark, and nowhere else. 1999, the winter after the funeral, because grief makes you check things. The half frame was there, friends, at 11:41 and 41, where it lived. Gordon Speace's face, 6 inches out, patient, checking his pot. 2003, after Mavity died, same ritual, same daylight. There, friends, same mark, same face. And I want to say, for the record, that both of those times, some small strangeness nagged me that I put down to memory, the way you put things down to memory when the alternative will not fit in the room. The face looked, both times, very slightly. How do I say this to you, friends? Nearer. Not in the frame. The frame was identical. The composition. The focus. Nearer the way a chair is nearer, after someone has moved it an inch while you were out, and your body knows it before your mind does. I put it down to memory, and then, in 2011, with Karen gone to her sister's for a week, and the house too quiet, I did the ritual one more time, jogged the wheel down through the familiar seconds. 11:41, 39, 40. And my thumb was already rolling to 41? Friends, the click I had made 1,000 times, and the face was already there. At 40 seconds, 1 full second early. 30 frames early. Friends, that is what a second is. 30 frames, and I sat there in my kitchen with my thumb on that wheel, and I did the one piece of police work I had left in me. I rolled forward to 41:41, the old mark, the home mark. Empty. Highway, Buick, silhouette. Nothing at the glass. It was not at its mark anymore, friends. It had moved. In a sealed safe, on a dead format, in 11 minutes of magnetized rust that no living eye had touched in 8 years, it had moved 1 second toward the beginning of the tape, toward 11:38, toward the 10 seconds of buffer. Friends, the quiet dark, 10 seconds before the light bar, before the stop, before any of it, when the camera was just watching an empty road, and the empty road, I have come to believe, was watching it back. I powered the deck down, and I put the cassette in the safe, and I shut the door, and I have not opened it in 15 years, and I am not going to. Friends, and now we both know the real reason this account exists. I am not telling you a story tonight. I am filing a report with the only department left that takes these, which is you, friends, all of you, by your lamps, in your towns, on your night roads. Somebody besides me needed to know what is in that safe and which direction it is going. What do I believe? An old deputy owes you a theory, friends. So here is mine, assembled over 32 years, worth exactly what you weigh it. I do not believe Gordon Spiess was taken by a thing that hides on Montana highways. I believe the highway at night is a lens, friends. I believe empty attention is a lens, and 1994 is the year we started bolting eyes to our vehicles by the thousand and pointing them at the dark for 10 hours a shift. And I believe something noticed. Not him, friends. It. The camera. The new, bright, unblinking thing that had begun, all across this country, in that exact decade, to stare. Gordon Spiess had the bad luck to be the object in frame the night our particular eye got noticed back. And what stood at the glass at 11:41:41 was not checking on Gordon, friends, and it was not checking on Chess. It was checking on the camera. Looking in the door we had propped open, learning the room, and it has been walking up the hallway of that tape, 1 second in a decade, patient as rust, toward the buffer, toward the empty road, toward the moment before anyone was watching anything. And I do not know what happens when it gets there, friends. And I have decided, at my age, with my heart, that I do not have to be at the screen finding out. Mavity said it drunk and true. Every look is a door open both ways. We have built 400 million doors since, friends, and hung them on our trucks and our porches and our baby cribs. And if you want to know why the tired gray men collect certain tapes and ask certain counties about their sleep, I believe you now know as much as I do, and more than they would like. So here are your rules, friends, from the last man of the October 14th shift, and they are cheap to keep, and they were not cheap to learn. If you drive up on a vehicle at night, motor running, driver sitting still and perfect behind the wheel, on a road with nobody on it, you call it in, and you wait for your second unit. Friends, I do not care what your training says about initiative. Some stillness is a lure. We have covered lures at this lamp before, and this one wears a seatbelt. If you keep cameras, and you do, friends, you all do now, keep them like you would keep a dog that does not know you yet. Know which way they point. Do not point them at your bed. And if you ever find, in any footage you own, on any device, A frame that should not be there. A face too close. A figure in a hall you just walked. Listen to me now, like I am your own blood. Do not watch it again to be sure. Being sure is the second look, friends, and the second look is the handshake. Copy nothing. Show no one you love, and put the thing away in the dark where it came from. Because I will tell you what my 1,000 viewings bought me. Friends, an old man alone with a fire safe. He cannot open and cannot throw in the river, because the river is in my county, and I still love my county. Put your town in the comments tonight, friends, and the emptiest road you know. I keep the list. It is a long list now, and it glows on the map like a nervous system. Thank you for standing the night shift with me. Check your mirrors on the way to bed, friends, once, only once. And leave a light on. Good night.